The haunting of Raven Blackwood. The unfortunate accident. Raven Blackwood was an ordinary man with an extraordinary name. His life was a series of routine events, from his early morning jogs to his late-night shifts at the local factory. But one fateful evening, everything changed. Driving home after a particularly grueling shift, Raven's eyelids grew heavy. The monotonous hum of the engine and the rhythmic thudding of the tires on the asphalt lulled him into a dangerous daze. In a moment of blurred consciousness, Raven's car veered off the road, striking a lone pedestrian. The man, whose name was Simon Carter, had been walking home after a long day. His life was a chaotic mess of unresolved domestic issues, from a failing marriage to the pressures of mounting debts. The accident was sudden, brutal, and fatal. Raven, in a state of shock and panic, called the authorities. Despite his genuine distress and the evident accidental nature of the incident, guilt gnawed at him. Simon's lifeless eyes seemed to bore into Raven's soul as he was declared dead at the scene. Unbeknownst to Raven, Simon's troubled soul did not find peace in death. Instead, it was filled with a dark, vengeful energy. His unresolved anguish and the sudden, violent end to his life anchored his spirit to the mortal world. Simon's soul roamed the site of the accident, driven by an insatiable desire for retribution. One cold night, as Raven tried to drown his sorrows in sleep, he was jolted awake by an eerie sensation. The temperature in his bedroom plummeted, and a cold, clammy hand seemed to brush against his cheek. He bolted upright, heart pounding, but found nothing. Dismissing it as a bad dream, he tried to sleep again, unaware that Simon's vengeful spirit had found him. Days turned into weeks, and Raven's life descended into a nightmare. Strange occurrences plagued him, objects moving on their own, whispers in the dark, and the feeling of being watched. One evening, while brushing his teeth, Raven glanced at the mirror and saw Simon's reflection standing behind him, eyes burning with rage. He spun around, but the apparition vanished. The encounters grew more violent. Raven found deep scratches on his arms and chest, inflicted by invisible claws. His nights were filled with terrifying visions of Simon, his face twisted in torment and fury. The once ordinary man now lived in constant fear, his nerves frayed to the breaking point. One stormy night, the haunting escalated to a deadly game. Raven was home alone, the howling wind and pounding rain outside mirroring the chaos within. As he moved through his darkened house, the lights flickered and went out. In the suffocating darkness, Raven felt a cold presence close in on him. Desperate to escape, he stumbled towards the kitchen, where a faint, eerie glow emanated from the fridge. As he reached it, a knife flew off the counter, narrowly missing his head. Simon's ghostly form materialized, eyes glowing with malevolent intent. The knife hovered in midair, pointing directly at Raven. Terrified, Raven grabbed a chair and flung it at the apparition. The chair passed through Simon, shattering against the wall. The knife lunged at Raven, who barely dodged it, feeling the cold steel graze his arm. Blood oozed from the wound, and Raven's panic intensified. He scrambled for the back door, but it slammed shut before he could reach it, held fast by an unseen force. Cornered and desperate, Raven remembered an old amulet his grandmother had given him, said to ward off evil spirits. With trembling hands, he yanked open a drawer and found the talisman. Clutching it, he faced Simon's spirit. "Simon! I'm sorry. It was an accident. Please, let me go," Raven shouted, his voice shaking. For a moment, Simon's ghost hesitated. The hatred in his eyes flickered, replaced by a profound sadness. Raven felt a surge of hope, but it was fleeting. Simon's rage reasserted itself, and the knife lunged again. Raven thrust the amulet forward, and a blinding light erupted from it. Simon's ghost let out a bone-chilling scream as the light enveloped him. The knife clattered to the floor, and Simon's form began to dissolve, his tormented face finally showing a hint of peace. The haunting ceased, and Raven collapsed to the floor, exhausted and shaken. The house was silent once more, the oppressive presence lifted. He knew he would never be the same again. The experience had scarred him deeply, both physically and mentally. Raven sought solace in therapy, confiding in his sessions about the haunting. While few believed his tale, he found a way to cope with his guilt and fear. He visited Simon's grave, laying flowers and whispering apologies, hoping that, wherever Simon's soul was now, it had found peace. Raven's life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the memory of Simon's vengeful spirit lingered. He became a more cautious, empathetic man. Forever haunted by the night, he survived the wrath of a tormented soul. I hope this opening captures the adventurous and introspective spirit you were looking for. If you'd like more chapters or any adjustments, feel free to let me know.